Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. Yes, I am talking about the Last Word on Spurs, and it isn't Ricky Sachs. He is having some fantastic downtime with his family, although he just nipped in to make sure that we was all right. I'm not going to lie. But Ricky's having some well-earned downtime with his family, a.k.a. Bentancur. And I must say a massive, massive shout out, first of all, before we even get started in the show, and look at our wonderful guest, to Digital Spurs. You need to be following at Tim Winstone and, of course, at Spurs Song Sheets. Because as you can see, he's the reason we are playing on Wednesdays next season, the Bentancur t-shirt. Thank you so much for that. I think I've got one of these because I made my daughter sing the song. It went pretty mad on Twitter and Instagram and all that sort of stuff earlier last week. So thank you so much, everybody. And we're still singing. We're still very, very happy. As you can find us on all of the relevant social media channels. As you know where we are by now. I don't know where you've been if you don't. At the moment, we're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on everything you can find us on, as all per normal. We've got some fantastic guests. Before I introduce them to you, I know you already know them. They're regulars. They are the boys. They're the people that make up Last Word on Spurs. I just want to say a massive, massive thank you to all of you for your continued support. Huge interaction in the show. It's such a feel-good factor at the moment around Spurs, and we generally love it. So thanks for all the comments, all the questions. Hopefully we'll get through a few of them for all of you tonight. And we can crack on with a show, which I cannot wait. It's a transfer special for 2 hours just for Jason. It's not really. Of course it isn't. Of course it isn't. Jason's given a thumbs up. Don't forget, hit the likes. There's already over 250 people watching live, so start hitting them likes, get some people down there. We've got 3 outstanding guests, returning guests to the show. We've already known one of them, of course, one of our own, Jason McGovern. Jason, how you getting on?
Very good, mate. Thoroughly enjoyed the weekend of sport. Plenty of good volleyball on, plenty of good cricket. Brilliant. Joe Rodon, 10,000 runs. Who said England are a finished test side? Brilliant.
He is brilliant, isn't he? Absolutely brilliant. I'm sure if there's any highlights of the cricket on, Jace will be nipping off when we get to the transfer bit. But good to have you back on board, Jace, of course. Coming over to Chris Cowlin, another one of our own. Obviously, Tottenham fan Chris Cowlin show is absolutely banging through the transfer rumours. Chris, how you getting on, fella? You're looking quite
very well, Lee. Very well. Lovely to be on with you, Jason and Frank, as usual, talking all things Spurs. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Great to have you back on. And, of course, Frankie Major, mate. Absolutely brilliant. How's your Jubilee weekend? Have you been celebrating the Queen's 70th Jubilee? And what have you been up to, mate?
Well, I had a little break, as you know, when I last done this show. It was only in Devon with my missus and her family for 5 nights. So I had a good drink for the Jubilee then. And missing the football. I mean, I'm obviously trying to watch these internationals. He's not the same. But like Jason, I watch every other sport. So I've been watching the French Open. I've been watching the cricket, which has been entertaining, but just a bit disappointed with England the other night. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the Germany game tomorrow. And obviously I'll be watching that, mate.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And as well, to have you back on, Frank. And interestingly, you mentioned about the internationals were on an international break. That's feel a bit flat sometimes, doesn't it? Especially with these kind of Nations League fixtures. But we will get onto an international roundup a little bit later on, because a lot of our players, obviously, most of our squad are internationals, apart from Eric Dyer. Work that one out, listeners and viewers. Hey, who knows? But we will get onto that a bit. But let's get into it first and foremost. Since we've all been last back on, we've had a little bit of a break, as all of us have said, and we've signed a player. I mean, I literally cannot believe it that we're saying it. The transfer window is not even open, and we've actually signed a player. Jace, come over to you. Ivan Perisic, I probably battered his name, 10 goals, 9 assists last season in Serie A, 49 games played in total. He's a Serie A winner. He's a Champions League winner. He's a Bundesliga winner twice with Dortmund and with Bayern Munich. Throwing a couple of domestic trophies in there as well, Jace. I mean, this geezer's a winner, isn't he? He's the real deal.
It's fantastic signing. Doesn't matter for age. It's, we constantly talk about backing the manager, and there's no doubt this one's backed. I think he's signed for Conte. He hasn't signed for Tottenham. And Conte's, managed to say, forget about age, forget about sell-ons, forget about improving players. This is one that I want now, tried and tested, and that I have total trust in. And fair play to us. I mean, reported to be just over 100 grand a week. So it's not even as if it's, it's not even crazy money. It's not like we've paid like Dybala wanted 270 grand or something like that. So, I think it's 2 years plus an option of a third. Just a fantastic signing. He's, the undoubted quality. I see a clip of him taking a penalty the other day, one with his left foot, one with his right foot. So that shows you how good he is. And I think the fact that he'll play most of the games the same side as Son, and they're both two-footed. For the opposition fullback, he doesn't know which one's going left of him, which one's going right. That could be a fantastic dynamic down that side. So hopefully he settles and gets into that Premier League pace quickly, and then after that, fantastic, mate. Absolutely fantastic signing.
Absolutely brilliant stuff. Chris, coming over to you. I mean, what do you think of Ivan? I know, obviously, I've watched your shows, obviously, this week as well. If you don't know where Chris, you can find Chris Cowlin again all over the socials as normal. What do you think of this Ivan Perisic fella? Do you know much about him?
You know what? I completely agree with Jace. This is all about backing Antonio Conte. Conte wanted Ivan Perisic to come in at Spurs. He's got his man. It's very important to give Antonio Conte what he wants right now. And as you've said, Lee, he's won the Champions League. He's played in a World Cup final. He has been there, done it, got the T-shirt.
He scored in a World Cup final, didn't he?
Exactly. Yeah. Against our goalkeeper and captain, Hugo Lloris, yes. But this is a player that has been there, done it, and got the T-shirt and won trophies everywhere he has gone. Very similar to Antonio Conte. And I believe that him coming in, we have just signed a real leader on the pitch, a real leader off the pitch as well. And this will only be good for the mentality as well in the football club. And it's about now, who's going to follow him in. But when we have done business like this, a real statement signing, a free transfer, yes, he's 33, but I think he's still got so much to give. But doing business 3 months early, we are used to, as Spurs fans, waiting until the final week of August, and this deal was over the line on the 31st of May, 3 months early. So absolute quality signing, extremely happy. And, the other thing is that he can play in a number of different positions as well. So, if we did have injuries in certain departments, he can even play up front. So it's a fantastic signing for me.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting point. And coming over to you, Frank, what Chris makes a really good point there about playing in different positions. Do you see him playing as that left wing back that we think he's going to play, or do you think that Conte's going to mix it up a little bit? I mean, like Jace, I read a stat the other day that he ran more distance than the majority of Serie A last year. So regardless of 33 years old or not, I think it's just amazing signing. Do you think he's going to be planting in that left wing back position?
Well, he started as a striker for the large part of his career, but I believe he will be our left wing back. And sort of echoing what the lad said, fantastic signing, 33 years old, in peak condition, lives the right life, ran more miles than I think most. I forget the statistic, but it was up there in the stats for Serie A. He also sprinted at top speed, a higher per kilometre per miles an hour than any of our players sprinted last season. So automatically he becomes the quickest sprinter in the side at 33. A fantastic example to the rest of the squad. As Chris said, World Cup finalist, World Cup scoring finalist, twice Bundesliga winner with 2 different clubs. He's got the CV, Serie A, he's done the business. And recently, and it was only mid-May, I think it was 4 weeks ago, he scored 2 goals in the Coppa Italia final. It was Inter's first Coppa Italia win in 11 years. And the second goal was an absolute worldie, screamer from outside the box, where he took the ball down with his right foot, hit it on the half volley with his left foot. And that's what quality he brings. He's still in his peak. He's had a fantastic 2 seasons at Inter Milan. And now he comes up to Tottenham. As you said, he's an Antonio Conte signing. Antonio Conte signing, both-footed, can go either way. And so excited to see him in action. I think he's exactly the type of signing we need. He's got fantastic qualities, and I can't wait to see him get started.
Can I just say, Lee, I think this signing so early as well says to the fans and says to everybody that we are backing the manager straight away. Now, we signed this player 9 days after the Premier League season finished at Norwich. And, when all of us wanted yet another lift. We have all got it, and we are all now going into this transfer window very, very excited.
I got the impression, though, Chris, from what he said when he said, I knew that after the Arsenal game that they'd qualify. That to me says they'd spoken before the Arsenal game, and he knew what the arrangement was. As long as we get in that top four, we want him to come, and he'd probably verbally given that agreement. So it just shows you deal was probably done, early May, late April type of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. Mark makes a really good point here. It's a myth that players over 30 are done. Sports science, diet, training, kit, boots, pitches, everything like that. Look at Modric. I think, Frank, you made this. I think you might have made this point last time around as well. Benzema, Modric, Lewandowski. Look at Ronaldo. I mean, these are still, playing at a really, really high level. I mean, Ronaldo was the third top goal scorer in the Premier League. He's 37, 38. Mark White's 37, 40, 38 to be fair. But there's some serious. Players still, people saying, Kane's aging and Son's aging, and now you're buying Perisic and he's already 33. These players have still got, in my opinion, 4 or 5 years playing at the highest level now, Frank?
If you live the right life nowadays, as Mark said, with the sports science involved, and it is a science, and you live the right life, then footballers can go comfortably into their mid-30s now. And again, if you look at his sprint stats in Serie A and the pace that he's still running at, and his output over the last 2 seasons, he's very much still in his prime. And the counter argument to that is, which it was a tweet I put out, Lee, which actually gathered quite a bit of momentum, to say that I've just seen the likes of Kroos and Modric and Benzema all playing the Champions League final, yet people are telling me Perisic is too old. I understand that those players are at a very high level, don't get me wrong, but so is Perisic. And again, if you look at his numbers and his performances for the last 2 seasons in the best Inter Milan side that we've seen in a very long time, he's got genuine top qualities. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's one of the very best players in the world, but he's got world-class qualities, definitely. I mean, he's another one like Son, who is an ambidextrous football player, because there's not many of those around, and the guy takes penalties with his left and right foot. How many footballers do you see do that? I can't name one. So he's got, again, there's a lot more qualities than just what he gives us on the pitch that he's bringing to that dressing room: leadership, the winning mentality. And if anything, that's what we've lacked over the last 10 years or so, getting over the line in those big moments. And he gives he's given his previous clubs those big moments in those games, as he did 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago in the Coppa Italia final. So don't underestimate the qualities he'll take to the dressing room as well as on the pitch.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just before we move on to potentially, I think another sign that's about to be, the next couple of days or so, it's coming through the door in terms of big Fraser Forster. If we were to sign 2 or 3 more players in this kind of Perisic mould, do you think that's the right way for us to go at the moment? It feels like you said, I agree with everything you say about kind of, backing the manager and getting the right players through the door now. But, it is very different from buying youth and then, developing them, for example, that Spurs have been doing or trying to do for a long period of time. Chris, what do you think on that?
I think it's very important, and I'm not at all surprised. I actually expected it, that Antonio Conte would go out and target players who are ready for the Premier League and ready to win and get us over that line. Now, dare I say about trophies, we haven't won trophies in so long. It is about time that we won something, and it's about time that we actually focused on winning something and doing something glorious at this football club. How many times have we all said on this show, some of the world-class players that we've got in Heung-min, Son and Harry Kane, not won a trophy yet. The training facilities, the stadium, now the manager, now it is time to put trophies in the cabinet. And by bringing in experience, players that have been there, done it and got the T-shirt. And most importantly as well, Ivan Perisic knows exactly what Antonio Conte demands, and he knows exactly what he requires, on the pitch, off the pitch. So this is, a fantastic signing for me. And, to answer your question, Lee, 2, 3, 4 more signings like this, I think that we could really challenge for something next year.
What, like Holly just says, what you mean the trophies are coming, Chris?
They've got to be. They've got to be. We all joke about it. When you go from Mauricio Pochettino to Jose Mourinho, the trophy winner, and now Antonio Conte, it has to happen. It has to happen. And, that's what I said earlier, a reference to my point earlier, nine days after the season ended, and we've bought a player already. Yes, he's on a free transfer, but I believe that this is going to be a very exciting transfer window. And I am very excited about next year because Antonio Conte, it's the first time ever in his managerial career where he's taken over a club mid-season. Pre-season is extremely important to him. And by bringing in these players early, it gives him time to work with them. And, especially with the experience and players that he's worked with before, as I say, they know exactly what is expected of them. And that's why I'm so excited about next season. I really am.
And just touching on that, Chris, do you know how hard it is to get players fit mid-season or throughout the season without a proper pre-season to the standard of that particular manager and what he requires? Yeah. It's now impossible. And we noticed it in the short time, really, relatively on the scale of the season. He came in November. To have got the players to the standard and level he got them to by the end of the season. It wasn't perfect, but he'd taken them all up notable notches. For him to now have a proper pre-season will set the pace for us, and I think we'll hit the ground running. The players will be at peak condition come the beginning of the season, and as long as we obviously get his required targets in before pre-season, which he stated that he wants, we should be able to hit the ground running under Antonio Conte.
Frank, this is exactly the reason why I call him the magician, because, the work that he's done and has done since November to now, getting us into Champions League, we're all sitting here smiling. We're all sitting here feeling very optimistic about the summer and about next season. And, if there's someone who's going to take us places and lift a trophy for us, it is definitely Antonio Conte.
I agree. Jay, just come back over to you. What do you think about, I know it's a transfer link, but Kostic was heavily linked with us as a left wing back as well. And obviously Perisic coming in. Do you think, Jace, that actually that's probably dead now? Or do you think that they're, because Frank, you just made a good point. I think you said ambidextrous, right? Plays on the left, can play on the right, generally both foot. You don't know if he's going to come inside, go outside. So could he play as a right wing back and then maybe bring a Kostic in, or am I reading too much into that, do you think?
I must admit, I hadn't thought of it in that way. He's been playing more on the left, but you're, I think he'll have a big influence, hopefully, on Sessegnon. I think you might see him play in front of Sessegnon sometimes to give Son that bit of a rest. I think if he's going to play slightly differently, it's more to be in place of Son and in front of Sessegnon or something like that than on the right-hand side. I don't think we'll be surprised now if we went for Kostic as well. But you just don't know it. There's so many names that are thrown at us all the time. But the key thing is, and as we've said it all along, you get the ones in that Conte wants. Whether we think they're the right players or not, you just bring the right ones in. And that's important for me. I just hope that Oil Boy is not one of them.
Well, I think it's Jed Spence. Jed Spence is the name that seems to have been mentioned by all of the credible journalists, and I know Jason, it winds you up, and it's not done until it's done, and all the rest of it. But I feel that the two wing-back signings that we'll make will be Perisic and Jed Spence. That's the way it's looking anyway. So I don't think Kostic will be a player that we bring in this summer.
My one concern, that I've said with Jed Spence, and it's not that I don't like the player. I mean, when I've seen him for Forest, he's been on most occasions very good. I just think if we're looking at, let's be honest, we're in the top four. We talk about Chris will talk trophies are coming. We all expect Tottenham to do better next year than they did last year. Whether that season go on and win a title is different. But I mean, if we're trying to push towards, mid 80 points type of thing, at least that type of level, I'm not so sure Jed Spence on a year in the Championship is ready to take a Premier League side to the mid 80s.
That's what I'm worried about.
And with rotation in amongst Champions League games, of thinking, because it is an incredibly condensed season with the break of 2 months and things. So you will have that week where you'll play, I don't know, you'll play Inter in the Champions League, and you've immediately got a really tough game on the Saturday to follow it. And that wing-back role is incredibly demanding. Now, I'm not sure Jed Spence is ready to step into that yet. He may well be. I don't take that as a negative comment for him, but it's just a very big jump from where he's been so far. And I've seen him play well. I've also seen him disappear from games, but it's a massive jump that we'll be looking at. So I don't doubt that they will try and bring Jed Spence in, but I think there's a long way to go before Jed Spence for me is is on that team sheet in our strongest side. That's for sure.
Do you think it'll be Matt Doherty? Do you think that's who he's got in mind as his starting right wing back for the beginning of the season, considering the performances he started to put in under Conte?
I think let's, before we get into that, let's just wind it back a little bit, because I think we get into a lot of detail around kind of what it might look like, and we've got a part of the show a little bit later on that we'll actually talk about that in a little bit more detail. But I did want to put up a DJBP comment here. Would you guys add Bale back into this team? I know this panel on that question, DJBP, is split, because I mean I would have him back all day long. But I think some of the lads. So quickly round the table. Frank, we'll start with you, because I know we spoke about this in the green room, didn't we? What's your viewpoint on bringing Bale back?
There's no doubting that on the football, that left foot is still a wand, and he's still got qualities. But I just his attitude at the moment is crescendo in football for me is Wales and this World Cup, and he's even alluded to it recently, saying I'll continue a little bit longer for this World Cup. So as Jason has been saying to me for the last several months, and I totally agree with him, where does his motivation lie? Because prior in the build up to the World Cup, will he want to overexert himself and get injured and potentially miss the World Cup for Wales? No. And beyond that World Cup, where does his motivation lie? The guy's worth, what, £150 million or something ridiculous. He hasn't played regular football since he was on loan at Spurs. I can understand that with the 5-sub rule coming into play, that he'd be a fantastic impact player in games, particularly where teams sit in quite deep and frustrate us. I totally get that. But I just think surely there's a younger, more hungry player that can add that dynamic to this squad, more so than Bale. And I think that after this World Cup, I think he'll give up. I think he'll finish the season wherever he is and he'll retire. So it's grudgingly, my heart is saying, yes, I want him back again. And I didn't get to see him live when he was at Spurs when he came back, but my head is saying, I think we will miss this one out. And it split the fan base. It's 50-50 from what I see on Twitter,
for sure.
The opinion. But for me personally, it's a no.
Every time you tweet something about Bale or put something on social media about Bale, it is always split the fan base, or there's always a massive follow. I mean, his numbers are they're insane. They're absolutely insane. Even the other night, he was the one that got him out of trouble, and there was in a lot of trouble. Jace, quickly to you, Gareth Bale coming back to Spurs. What do you think?
No, not for me. I think as Frankie says, when you look at the season, I think there's 15 Premier League games until the World Cup. So, and I think he'll be gone after the World Cup. So you're bringing him in for a maximum of 15. Any slight tweak in him, if he wakes up with a slightly sore calf, he's not playing that Premier League. He will not risk missing that World Cup, particularly in a group with England as well. His whole motivation for that is Wales. We've signed Perisic at 33, but he's coming to play in the Premier League to play for Tottenham. Gareth Bale is just purely trying to be fit for Wales, and he has that. I mean, of course, he has enormous qualities, and maybe if we've got a 25th place in the squad on the eve of the season and he's still available, then you think, okay, well, we'll do it short term. But no, I mean, I don't really see it happening, and I think you'd be lucky to get 5 or 6 games out of him, in which case let's concentrate our efforts on somebody who's going to come in and be available for 38 games and he's really hungry to play for Tottenham for the next 2 or 3 years.
You're breaking my heart here, boys. Chris, you got any balance on that or what?
Yeah, sorry, Lee. I actually agree with Frank and Jace, I'm afraid. I think Antonio Conte as well will demand a whole lot more than what Gareth Bale can give in games. And, you know, what Jason's just said there about game time. We saw under Jose Mourinho, he didn't play all of the games, although Frank said that he played regularly. You know, he only played like half the games during the season. Yeah, I'm afraid it's a no for me.
I can see the appeal of coming off the bench with 15 minutes to go or something like that when you're trying, as people say, you got the low block teams and can he smash in a free kick or something like that. I accept that and I understand that, and that's why I say if we've got 24 players in the squad and there's a last space, then maybe then, but he certainly wouldn't be on my top 5 or 6 players list.
Well,
He's not going to overexert himself. If it's 2 or 3 weeks and
No.
it's a big game before the World Cup and he has to make that sprint to get back, or he has to put that extra effort in above the 100% that he should be giving anyway, he's not going to do it, and he's going to protect himself. And I think we have to be careful with that. And his fitness level and injury record compared to Perisic, although Perisic is a year older, chalk and cheese. Completely different.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was just about to say, when you're talking about someone to get you out of jail with a free kick, maybe Perisic can do that now, left foot or right foot. So maybe we've already made that sign in itself. But a good debate on Gareth Bale. I just wanted, before we go go over to an international roundup, I just want to talk about Fraser Forster. I'll come over to you, Chris. You obviously had Fab Romano on your channel. I think it was earlier today, to be fair. And obviously a good friend of the show, Ali Gold, mentioned in his video yesterday that it's days away. Can we safely put this one to bed and say that the 6'7" giant that is coming over the hill, it's that monster Fraser Forster? Is he coming to the football club?
Yeah, apparently this is a done deal. It's just a matter now of the official announcement. But of course, Galini's gone back after his respective loan, having made 10 appearances in a Spurs shirt in all competitions. But Fraser Forster, I think, is a decent signing for Spurs. Knows the Premier League. I love when we sign players with Premier League experience because I think that they know the players, they know the opposition, they know everything about the Premier League. And I think Fraser Forster is a good, solid goalkeeper. A good signing for us, yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Well, look, let's in fact, for our listeners on audio, we're going to go for our first break of the show. And when we return, we're going to be talking a little bit about the international roundup. For our viewers on YouTube, we've got over 800 of you watching live in a season break, essentially. So thank you so much, international break. So thank you so much for tuning in and getting involved with all of us. Guys, viewers and listeners, I want to talk to you all about international roundup, because it is the break and sometimes it goes a little bit flat, especially the way that we finished the season. I think the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season for Tottenham Hotspur were absolutely electric, to be fair. Not she's electric, but he's the reason. Do you get what I'm saying here? And you can find these at Digital Spurs, by the way, at Digital Spurs. Go follow them. Frank, coming over to you, international side of things. You mentioned in the green room you're a little bit disappointed with how England set up. What did you think of Harry Kane's performance the other night in an England shirt?
I felt that he started well. He switched a beautiful ball out to James Justin. When he gets what the footballers call a spray can out, he's sprayed one out there. He sprayed a lovely ball out to Trent. He was looking to link up with Jared Bowen, slipping some balls in and getting around him. So he started really well, but just like the whole team, in the second half, he was flat. He didn't get any service. I think he didn't have a proper creator behind him or around him. I thought the wing-backs were poor. I don't think he had one decent cross, which we all know. If you feed him crosses on the deck or in the air, he'll get goals. And it was just he just faded. It just dissipated with the performance, really, and a little bit disappointing. I think we'll probably see a different England tomorrow against Germany, probably a bit more motivated. But I just thought the setup from Southgate was so negative to play a side like Hungary, 40th in the world. They didn't really offer too much of a threat. I know on a counter attack a couple of times they got through, but to play 5 at the back, and I think even Declan Rice and Bellingham, not really, no creativity there. I still think picking 5 right backs, 5 by the way, no natural left-footed left back, and no, in my opinion, natural number 10s who sit in the pocket. I mean, Mason Mount for me isn't an out-and-out 10. James Maddison is, and I feel to leave him at home when that game was crying out for a James Maddison type was a little bit poor. But I think Southgate has got to have a look at all of his options. That's why obviously he started Southgate. I do think he was still too negative, but I hope that we see a different England and a more positive approach tomorrow, because it wasn't just that game, but the 2 previous performances under Southgate, we didn't create anything. I don't think we had a shot on goal. I don't think we won. I think we've lost 4 of our last 5 Nations League games or something like that. So we're on a little bit of a downward spiral, in my opinion, with England. And you can't really knock the job Southgate's done. Because of obviously the performances in the last 2 major tournaments. But within the context of that, I don't think he's, in my opinion, the right man for England. I thought against Italy, we took the lead in the final and just sat off, which was wrong. It was Jose Mourinho-esque. at Spurs, wasn't it? Taking off some of your best players, trying to sit in and defend a 1-0 lead. And I don't think we'll win the World Cup under Gareth Southgate personally. But yeah, it wasn't enjoyable, Lee, to be honest with you. I didn't enjoy it at all. I was bored, I was tired, and I was a little bit disappointed that Harry Kane didn't get a goal, because I would have liked to have seen him get to that 50 goal mark.
Exactly. Kane is chasing that for 53 goals. He's only 4 for Wayne Rooney. James, coming over to you, looking at the Wales game. Obviously, we touched upon Bale already, but Joe Rodon obviously was playing, and of course, Ben Davies, one for Rick. I know he'll be tuning in at some point. 6 out of 10. You're having a laugh, wasn't it? 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 10 out of 10, wasn't it, Jace? Talk to me about Ben Davies and Joe Rodon's performance.
I thought Ben Davies was exceptional. The tackle he made, I forget who the Ukrainian, but the sliding tackle at the edge of the 6-yard box was immense. The fact that he read it, saw it coming, and I think that just shows you how his season's been for us. Still one of the highlights is that block on Salah at Anfield, and I think Ben Davies has been like that. I think we had that. If you remember on the last show, we did the Who's the Most Improved Player, and I said it's so close between him and Eric Dyer. But he was exceptional, and you could really see him. He really led for Wales. I thought the other night he was the one doing the talking at the back. You could see him organised. There was something happened down in the corner. It was a silly foul or something like that, and he was straight out of the players. And I think it wouldn't surprise me when I think Ramsey will also go after the World Cup. I'm pretty certain he'll be the next Wales captain once Bale and Ramsey have gone. It was a fantastic performance, and he thoroughly deserves to go to that World Cup. He's been immense for Wales. He's been excellent for us all season. Just you couldn't praise him enough the other night. It really was. But I mean, Wayne Hennessy as well. To come off the bench with Burnley and perform as Wayne Hennessy did, the save he made from the guy's header was a ridiculous save for somebody like that. So. I think Bale and Ramsey obviously always take so much of the attention for Wales, but there were, some of the really old established players like Joe Allens and people like that. To see them performing as they did was fantastic for Wales.
No, I totally agree. I mean, Ben Davies getting loads of love in the comments as well, and rightly so. He was absolutely outstanding, along with Joe as well. I think he's been. You've got to give Joe some credit in the sense of he's hardly played for Tottenham, but he's still coming into an international game, having that training and doing all that sort of stuff as well. But yeah, I totally agree. Ben Davies is outstanding.
I meant to say on Rodon, I wasn't so impressed on the night with Joe Rodon. I think having watched him for Wales a couple of times, he's made some decent challenges and things like that. But I think he looks like. I can partly understand why so many of the managers, Mourinho didn't like it or didn't fancy him so much. Nuno didn't fancy him so much. Conte doesn't fancy him. Maybe there's just that little bit of lack of composure. Perhaps he doesn't read things. I mean, the tackle on Ben Davies, the bloke was running behind Rodon. He got himself almost too square on, and he couldn't see the run behind him, and he's not alive to that and things like that. And that's probably what they see.
Yeah, training hard, through the Conte, in the backroom staff, putting them through the training is one thing, but actually match time and game time.
Yeah,
I think there is a player in Rodon. I agree with a friend of the show, Ali did say this as well earlier in the week, but I hope that he stays at Tottenham, but he goes out on loan.
No one's fancied him though, Lee. Not one manager has fancied him. Not one manager has fancied him.
I know, it's weird, isn't it?
So that's a bit worrying.
Yeah. Maybe he needs to go and get some game time. I don't know, but Chris, just coming over to you on the man that I've got no doubt that my daughters, I'll get them singing his song shortly. But Kulusevski, what a goal that was! I mean, just talk us through that. It was an amazing performance again from him in a Sweden shirt.
Unbelievable. He has been sensational for Spurs. He's now continued this form in a Sweden shirt, and this guy is absolutely magical. Probably the signing of the January transfer window. He's been absolutely brilliant in a Spurs shirt, and that goal the other night for Sweden, absolutely sensational. But can I just go back to Joe Rodon? Because I just want to say it must be extremely difficult for a player like that Similar to Steven Bergwijn as well, where they play so little for their club, then they go off on international duty, and then they're starters for their country. Then they do so well for their country, they come back and then get very, very limited, or no game time at all for their club. Joe Rodon, 2 substitute appearances right at the end of the season under Conte against Arsenal and against Burnley, and then of course he's going to play very important games against Scotland, and then of course the playoff game the other night against Ukraine. And this is why I understand Steven Bergwijn wanting to leave the club, because it must be very, very frustrating for them.
Yeah, it is difficult. And again, some really good comments coming in. Some people for, some people against. I mean, I think it's very difficult to judge someone when you only see him for, like you just said, like 3-4 minutes or 10 minutes at the end of the game. But like Frank and Jay said right at the beginning, four managers ain't fancied him. So what is going on
I've got to admit, Lee, I don't fancy Joe Rodon either, and that's why I thought it was a real out there comment when, of course, Jamie said he's our best defender at the club. That time ago, and I was like, "You sure?
Yeah,
what you want?"
I know he's watching.
But I don't fancy Joe Rodon. I must say, every time I've seen him in a Spurs shirt, I just think that we are going to demand a lot more, especially when we're playing in the Champions League. I think for me, certainly in this window, and certainly Antonio Conte, it's all about improvements. It's all about club direction. It's all about ambition and improvements to win something, to get over that line. Us as fans, we grow very attached to certain players. You want Gareth Bale back. The 3 of us don't. We grow very attached to players, but it's about being ruthless now. It is about being ruthless in getting over that line and winning something and being successful. And there's no point us all sitting here saying, yeah, we'll keep Joe Rodon and send him out on loan. What we send him out on loan for? If he's out on loan, he's not representing or playing out for our football club. So what's the point? Sell and move someone in that is going to be a part of the squad.
I think you're right as well, Chris. I mean, when you look at Champions League football next year with the homegrown rule, and you think, I mean, if you just looked at, say we haven't signed anyone in terms of centre halves, forget the players we're linked with, and you'd look at it and you think you got Dyer, you got Romero, you got Davis, you got Davinson Sanchez. You're probably going to have what, five centre halves in the Champions League squad, and your choice would be Tanganga or Joe Rodon. I don't think there's a lot between them, but Tanganga would have the advantage that he's club homegrown. So that makes Rodon then, pretty much 6th choice. And, do you really need that? So, no, it would be, sadly for him, I think he'll go on to be a decent Premier League player at a lower half Premier League club.
But the thing is,
I think we'll get our money back. I think we'll get our money back for him as well.
How much was it?
Yeah,
14, 15 or something?
But if some of these players aren't good enough to play in like a Carabao Cup game or an FA Cup game or a game against Burnley at home in the Premier League, being a starter, they're never going to be a Champions League player for next season. So it is all about being ruthless. And I think under Antonio Conte, we will certainly be ruthless with that attitude.
Yeah, I think you swung my opinion on that. To be fair, I think you're right. I think at the end of the day, it is about making sure that they're ready. And 3-4 managers haven't fancied Joe, so for whatever reason that is, maybe he needs to move on and kickstart his career elsewhere. Can
I just quickly just on that note, because we didn't really Chris mentioned it very briefly, but Kulusevski, that goal was outstanding, and for me, he is one of the best young players in world football. At his age, he's just turned 23. He's maturing. He's got better under Conte. I know he was Serie A Young Player of the Year a few years ago, and he was a prospect, but he is maturing into a fine footballer. And I'm so excited to see what he's going to do at Spurs with the full pre-season with Conte and see what he can do in a Spurs shirt. He also doesn't go to the World Cup this winter, so he's going to be a key player for us this season.
Big point.
So we want a whole load more of Juventus rejects, please.
We do. I mean, he has been absolutely wonderful. Michelle, totally agreeing with you there, Frank, as well. Just rounding up on the international side of things, Hugo versus Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. Højbjerg come out top by all accounts. The Dustman, as Crackers obviously once called him on the show, nicknamed him on the show. He was absolutely outstanding against France the other night. Hugo, unfortunately for him, letting in a couple of goals. Bergwijn as well. I mean, his international form keeps growing and growing. probably put an extra €1-2 million on his price tag every time he plays an international. For sure, Mr. Levy is loving that. But there was another wonderful strike from outside the box for Steven Bergwijn as well. Sonny as well. Jace, I suppose a little word on Sonny playing Neymar over in the international friendlies that they're playing as well. It was a cute little quote going on through Sonny. Various social media outlets picked up. Ali Gold mentioned it as well. Does Neymar know who I am? And he's a superstar, isn't he, Sonny? Not just in Asia now, Jace, but everywhere, no?
It certainly is. I shouldn't think there's too many people in the world now don't know who Sonny is. But interesting comments, I think, attributed to him today about not being on the PFA list and such, and him saying it looks like I need to win awards rather than be voted for them because people maybe still don't fully appreciate me. But he's just a class act. He's back in Korea. It was great to see the reception that he got with that golden boot. Chris is going to have the Chris will be stunned when he goes to South Korea. Chris is going on that tour to South Korea. Even he will be stunned at just how much Sonny means to Korea. It will be. I think a lot of the players, even the players themselves, will, when they get there, will just understand just what Sonny goes through, and that gives you then an idea of the pressures that he's under. When people used to talk about Beckham under pressure or England captains under pressure, he carries the whole weight of, and it's not just the nation, he carries it for the continent of Asia. Other Asian countries are proud of other Asian footballers. There's not that feeling like you get, for instance, between Brazilians that don't want Messi to do well and Argentinians that don't want Neymar to do well. Asia as a whole wants Asian players to succeed, and he'll carry so much pressure for that nation. Chris will be stunned at just how big he is.
I honestly can't wait for you to report back, Chris, on what that's going to be like. I'd love to be able to go over there and have and see it from my own eyeballs. Do you know what? I even might. I don't know. Let's see if I can get that one over the line. I'm not sure I can with my family. But just rounding up international, I know that we haven't gone through absolutely everybody. I think Brian Hill, for example, scored for the under-21s. Spain under 21s.
Højbjerg beat France, didn't he, with Denmark?
Yeah, we mentioned Højbjerg.
Sorry, beautiful assist.
Fantastic, wasn't it? Romero. I mean, how good is this guy? Is it 10 clean sheets in a row now? Frank, coming over to you. Is it 9 or 10, I think? This guy, I mean, he came to us, just to frame it as well. I know everyone knows this, but he came to us when we were in the Europa Conference League, and he was the Serie A Defender of the Year, and he still came to Spurs. I mean, this bloke is world class, isn't he, Frank?
He will be one of the best centre backs in world football, and there's no doubting that. He's fantastic. He's got all the right attributes to be a centre back. One thing he has learned in the Premier League, if you remember his first few appearances, he was a bit rash, and he's calmed that down. I think I'm trying to find it on my Twitter because there was all sorts of ridiculous stats flying around after they won the best of the Europeans versus the best of the Americas, the Bellissimo, the Finalissimo, whatever they called it, Argentina versus Italy. He has for the last 9 games, there's 9 clean sheets on the bounce. He's won as many trophies for Argentina as they've conceded goals with him on the pitch, which is a phenomenal stat. That was quoted by Squawker, and Lionel Messi's favourite defender, which says it all.
And they're proper games,
aren't they? Coming in the summer.
Proper games.
They're proper games. You know, they're not Liechtenstein and Armenia and things like that. We're talking playing Brazil, Uruguay, Chile's and Italy.
Well, I'll tell you the games. Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, Chile, Paraguay, Brazil, and Italy. Those are the 9 clean sheets on the bounce that he's had. And for him to be able to play in Conte's system of 3 at the back and the Argentinian system of 4 at the back shows how well he reads the game. And he knows he's so intelligent. His football IQ is extremely underrated, and he's only going to get better. And he's another one with a proper pre-season under his belt, because he didn't have one last season. Played the Copa America final, jabbed up to the eyeballs. Even the Villa keeper, Martinez, said that he doesn't understand how he made the final because he was on painkilling injections. that subsequently had a lasting effect on his beginning of the season, and he wasn't really fit probably until the turn of the year, and then obviously he got injured again. So, and he's never been injured before that. He said he's never missed a run of games like he has at Spurs. So this is another player under Antonio Conte with full pre-season, and he'll be able to show us so much more than he's shown us. And another masterclass for Argentina again. Another superb performance. He's an animal, and we are so lucky to have him at Tottenham. That's a Paratici masterclass, and fair play to him for bringing him to Spurs when it wasn't the most attractive proposition for him, really, was it?
It's really interesting, actually. I remember, Frank, you and I was on a show together when he first signed, and I remember we were chatting on the show about where his best position is going to be. And you said, I think his best position is going to be on the right of a free. You actually said that. And actually, it's true. When he plays as in a two, or maybe as the middle of a free, he's definitely not as effective as where he plays as the right of a free. And I think he's been. I echo everything.
It's where he played for Atalanta. That's where they played him. And I think obviously in a back four, he can't travel with the ball. He can't he can't sort of gamble as much because he's only got one other centre back with him. But I think in the three, particularly on the right hand side, where he can sort of perform the underlap or the overlapping runs, he's very good on the ball. Very underrated actually on the ball and playing out. That position seems to suit him best. So again, just a brilliant footballer, and I can't wait to see him evolve and develop at Tottenham this season. I can't wait.
It's going to be fantastic. I've got to bring it over a quick word for Chris and for Jace on Romero. How impressed, Chris, coming to you? How impressed have you been with this? I'm going to say little Argentinian centre back. I was going to say little. I don't know. When I meet him, I'll see if I'm bigger than him. My hair will be. But yeah, what do you think of the wee man?
Well, do you know, last summer, a lot of Spurs fans even said, who are we signing here? Who is this player? Is he going to be any good? You know, everyone questioned him. Everybody questioned Fabio Paratici and his signings. But when you think that the three signings that we have actually got from Serie A, they have actually been fantastic signings, and they have all three of them hit the ground running at this football club. And, you know, if I asked all three of you, when was the last time a signing at Tottenham hit the ground running like these three have? You know, I can't think of one. It's a very, very long time ago. Who, Frank? That's what I mean.
I can't remember.
When you think of these past signings, when you think of signings like Lo Celso and Ndombele, £100 million between them two, and when you think about what Fabio Paratici has done in bringing these three fantastic players that have transformed this team and ultimately got us Champions League because we have raided Serie A, and of course, as I referred to earlier, you know, two Juventus rejects. If they are rejects, then just give us some more. And that's why I'm really excited about going forward. And I don't care where these players come from, what country they come from. You know, if we want to go and raid Serie A for more players, then, you know, bring it on, because the three signings that Fabio has got in from Serie A so far have been absolutely superb. But Christian Romero will only get better. You know, the love from the fans will grow even more. And when you think last season, he only played about half the games, and, you know, injuries and, you know, with the international problems as well.
13 weeks out? I think he was. I mean, again, just this is a bit astonishing. Let me get carried away a little bit here from the Blue Book. But, you know, if you think about it, we lost 6 times in the Premier League under Conte since he came in. Can you imagine? And 13 weeks of that was without Romero. Like, can you imagine if Romero...
And Dyer missed 2 games, didn't he?
And Dyer missed 2 games that we actually lost as well. So, was it Southampton and Wolves, Frank? I think it was.
Yeah, so it was.
Did Dyer play at Chelsea?
Crazy.
I think Dyer, no, he didn't play at Chelsea. It was Chelsea. It was Chelsea away where Harry Kane had that goal disallowed where Thiago grabbed him. So that was one of the games. But to keep them fit together, Dyer and Romero. And Romero's already said that Eric Dyer's really helped him settle on and off the pitch. I think they've got a good relationship and a good understanding on the pitch. So if we can keep those two fit, which, again, as you said, they didn't play together for 13 weeks during last season, then we'll be even better for it defensively, which is a frightening prospect.
What about Romero, Jace?
I must admit, the first few weeks I was worried that rashness would cost us big time, and then he probably didn't didn't endear himself to too many when he made that jaunt to Argentina, and of course ended up causing a game to be abandoned along with Lo Celso, and then they came back and had to go to Croatia, didn't they? And do their quarantining. Then we played Palace, got battered 3-0 at Palace. All of those types of things were going on, so it probably wasn't the best start for him at Tottenham. And then I think in Conte's either first or second game, he did get himself sent off, didn't he? In one of those Conference League games, and you just thought he needs to calm it down and rein it in. But as the season went on, his decision making improved, and actually he didn't cost us. And I don't know how many games it was towards the end where he wasn't even booked. So he definitely, you could see the improvement on him just in the space of Conte's time. He's a huge player, isn't he, next season? I mean, when Jamie Carragher, you can talk what you want about Jamie Carragher. He's an experienced centre-half in the Premier League of 500 or 600 games, and he names him as the signing of the season. So it's in his position. So when players like that can see it, you have to tip your hand and say, what a fantastic signing, and hopefully we'll have him for a long, long time.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. A full house for me as well. I think he's been absolutely outstanding. And a little bit like you, Jace, I was a bit worried, a bit critical of him when he needed it. I mean, a lot of people forget because Harry Kane got that winner against Man City, but it was Romero that gave away the penalty. It was also Romero that let the ball go over the top and got underneath the ball with the Burnley goal, 1-0. And but I think that he's been, since he's been back and got his fitness back up, he's been virtually faultless. I mean, was it the goals against Leicester? And then raging
that
tackle,
thunderous tackle,
thunderous, like a raging ball. Wasn't it? It was just beautiful to watch. I cannot wait. And as Frank said earlier, to get them pre-seasons, we're going to go for another break for our listeners on audio. And when we come back, we're going to talk about them pre-season friendlies in a little bit more detail and actually what the pre-season is going to actually involve. There's on YouTube, there is our watching audience on YouTube, I should say, as Rick would say. There's over 800, nearly 850 if you're watching. Hit the likes, come on, that's what I always say. Subscribe and hit the likes as well. We need that support, so keep hitting them likes for us as well. That'd be fantastic. Frank, you mentioned it earlier, so I'm going to start over with you on this. Alistair Gold made a really good point, I think, earlier this week about the pre-season and the fact that you mentioned earlier that the players haven't even had a pre-season under Conte yet. Players should be getting around 3 weeks off in the summer before a grueling pre-season will start. I personally am really looking forward to seeing how that changes us as a group. I'm really excited about it because not just the fitness levels, which I think will go through the roof. Most players that have gone through this in the past, in the Italian leagues and obviously at Chelsea and whatever. I remember John Terry saying he was the fittest he's ever been under Conte. I think Kane's already been quoted as saying that already, and he hasn't even had a pre-season. So they all say it's amazing for them. But I'm really interested in the analytics side, the brain side of the game, the playbook, the tactics, the analysis, which I think in a pre-season is also going to be absolutely critical when he can sit them down throughout the whole pre-season and really get, the playbook out. I mean, if you look at NFL, the NFL for listeners and viewers that understand NFL a lot better than I do, but I'm sure they'll correct me in the comments, but they have literally 10s, 20s, 30s, hundreds of plays for different scenarios in a game. And I wonder whether or not that analytic side of the game, the tactical side of the game, is really helping the players understand that as well. What do you think, Frank? In terms of that pre-season, how is that going to change us as a group and as a team?
The whole package. It's the whole package. And from the stories I've heard from people I know who know a couple of players who have played under him, his diet is fantastic. I mean, some of the food that is brilliant. Apparently, it's like no other club that these players have been, or like no other manager that these players have played under. The sort of food that he gives you. Apparently, he's got some coffee type dessert thing which knocks your block off, but puts bagfuls of energy into you. And I've heard all these stories, and I think it's the full package, not just the fitness, but tactically. Game plans. I think we forget as well at Inter Milan, he also played a 4-3-3 at times. It wasn't just the 3-4-2-1 or the 3-4-3 that he plays at Spurs. So he hasn't changed that at Spurs yet, has he? But maybe with a full pre-season, there might be working on different tactics. We yet to see that, but it will
be 3-5-2
3-5-2
quite a lot into as well, Frank.
He did. He played 3-5-2. He played 4-3-3. He did. Eriksen quite often in that three-man midfield was his playmaker, which we'll get onto him, I'm pretty sure, later in the show. But the full package for me, the full package, again, what he gives them to eat, the strict dietary requirements, the fitness regime, the double sessions, and tactically, he's a fantastic manager. And I can't wait to see, as I said, these players after a full pre-season with Conte. I can't wait to see the work that they put in and what they show us at the beginning of next season. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. Obviously, we've got some really good pre-season games lined up as well within that, which I'm sure we'll all be watching. Chris, no doubt, will be at every single one of those, as we know. And just very excited to see how fit these players become. And more tactically aware, because we've already seen the improvements with these players under his tenure already without a full pre-season. So it will be fascinating to see what happens once he gets his grips on them.
Fascinating. That's what I'm fascinated. Mark writes on, there's no surprise that intelligent players like Davis, he has a degree, by the way, Dyer, and understand content and how they have flourished, and maybe the likes of Ndombele or GLC haven't as much. I mean, I'm not sure about how intelligent Ndombele and GLC are. I'm sure they're much more intelligent than I am, for example. But I suppose the point Mark's making, Jace, coming over to you, is that actually picking up that demand in not just that fitness levels, but that demand of how to play the game and intelligently the Conte ball, shall we say, hashtag, or the patterns of play is probably the best way for me to put it. They're definitely there, aren't they, during these last 7 months? Can you imagine what it's going to be like after the pre-season?
Yeah, and I think the importance of pre-season, if we look at the side, we can pretty much name currently what his first team was, pretty much going into each game. And then you had a couple of players around the edge of that he seemed to trust. But that's 14 players. Next season with Champions League and Premier League, we need that 20 players. So, he's got to get those, the next 6, if you like, on board really up to speed. And that's why the earlier they're in, the better it is. I mean, maybe one of the things of Steven Bergwijn, for instance, that even after that Leicester turnaround, we didn't really see a lot of Steven Bergwijn, did we? We still tended to see more Lucas Moura than Steven Bergwijn. And maybe he just thinks Steven just can't get what I totally want him to do. And it's just not going into him, whereas Lucas Moura maybe doesn't do it, but at least he knows what I want him to do. And so I think that element of trust is going to be important for the other players that come in. My one slight concern, I suppose, he hasn't got a great European record, and he constantly talks himself about when we have a week to prepare for games, and we said it amongst ourselves, didn't we? A week to prepare. We looked a much better side. But next year, because of that break, it is pretty much Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, right the way through the season. There is hardly any free weeks. I think there's one mad week where they come back from internationals I think the last international is played on the Monday night, and the Carabao Cup rounds is on the Wednesday and Thursday of that week. So, when people are talking about trophies are coming, and that's not a knock at Chris, but we could well be playing a Carabao Cup game 2 days after an international break, where the likes of Romero will still be travelling back from Argentina on the day of the game. So, you've got to look at blocks like that and realise that next season the physical challenges and the mental challenges are going to be huge. But don't think all clubs will have that problem. It won't just be Tottenham. But it's going to be a really testing season for a totally unique season we've never had before.
This is why though, Jace, it's very important that our sub bench is of real quality, because of course,
and 5 subs as well, isn't it?
Exactly, 5 subs, so we can rotate those players. That is so important. That is why it's so important that the likes of Joe Rodon, Steven Bergwijn, Tanguy Ndombele, Giovanni Lo Celso are sold and moved on, because if they are not part of Antonio Conte's plans, you need to offload them and you need to bring the players in that he is going to use, and most importantly, trust.
I think the club have already shown that one, they're backing him with the Juventus rejects, as you mentioned it, but also Ndombele, Lo Celso, Dele, to be fair, all moved on in January. Obviously, Gil went out Hill, so he went out on loan. because Conte didn't fancy him for this season. What I will quickly say on that as well, just quickly before we come over to Frank on the next part around pre-season friendly, is he sent Perisic out on loan, Conte did, to Bayern Munich, and he won the Champions League, and then he brought him back, and then they won Serie A. So he has an eye for saying, do you know what, you're not quite what I need, go away and then come back again. Maybe Brian Hill comes back at that player. Maybe it's another season he needs him out. But I think Perisic has actually looked at that Brian Hill deal as a sell-on deal if he never does play for Tottenham. Does that make sense? So even if he never comes and plays under Conte, I still think Brian Hill will actually be a good. Did he? I'm trying to think of the player. I think was it Weston McKennie? It wasn't Weston McKennie. It was somebody else that he bought Perisic for Juventus, and then he loaned them out, and then got a massive fee for him or something.
Romero.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It might have been, but yeah, I think it's something along them lines. Frank, come back over to you. In fact, Chris, sorry, I just want to mention something to you first. So sticking with Chris, Frank, I'll come to you in a second. South Korea tour, you're going, Chris Cowlin. When is it, and what's the kind of the regime that we can expect the boys to be playing? Are they playing kind of couple of exhibition matches, and then they playing some friendlies over there. Like, is it like an Audi Cup competition? What's the expectation, Chris?
Well, it's a couple of games, and I normally go to these tournaments. And a couple of years ago, I went to the America one, and it was scorching hot weather, and the players work extremely hard. This was, of course, under Mauricio Pochettino, and I expect very similar, if not even more intense training from Antonio Conte. And as Frank and Jason have rightly said, I am really looking forward to this tour because I think that he will transform a number of players yet again. When you think about what improvements that he has made with this squad, with the players that we have had, I called him the magician earlier about what he's done at the football club and getting us into the top four. I can't wait for pre-season. I think he's going to work those players extremely hard. He's going to, an interesting quote actually. I saw Antonio Conte say about the players have better football knowledge, and when I read that, I thought, how simple does that sound? They have better football knowledge. These guys are professional Premier League footballers. How can they have better football knowledge? But when you're learning from someone like Antonio Conte, who's been there, done it, won trophies everywhere he's been, this is why I'm so excited about this manager, because it's all about improvements. It's all about progression, and it's all about bringing in real quality now in order to get us over that line. But pre-season for me is absolutely everything. And as I said earlier, it's the first time he's ever managed a club mid-season, because pre-season is so important to him to instill all of his philosophy and thoughts of how he wants games played and what he wants players to do. So I'm so excited about next season. I think we're going to really achieve something next year. I really am. I'm so excited. I can't tell you.
Amazing stuff. Frank, coming over to you. We've obviously got the South Korean tour. We've obviously got the Rangers as well. And then we face Roma in Israel. I'm sure, Chris, you're going to be at all.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah, we'll be interested. Will Jose be there? I mean, he's heavily linked at the moment with PSG. I don't know how much truth that's in the offering there. But ultimately, we've got a couple of decent, friendlies coming up, to start ramping up before the season starts. I'm actually hoping, Frank, as well, that we do some of them kind of more local teams as well. I really like them friendlies when we go to like lower level clubs in the local area and all that sort of stuff. We probably won't fit them in. What's your view on the pre-season friendlies that we've got arranged so far?
Rangers at Ibrox, fantastic friendly, massive club, fantastic stadium, fantastic support. That would probably be a full house knowing Rangers, so that's a great friendly. South Korea, obviously for obvious reasons, it just ties in nicely with Spurs because the god of South Korea plays for Spurs, so that'll be interesting. It's something a bit different.
And the women's side, don't forget.
And the women's side as well.
Yeah.
So that we've got some great friendlies lined up. I just think we have to get the players in that Conte wants and the players out that he doesn't want. Prior to that, sort of touching upon what was said earlier, I think a lot of the fact that we didn't perform when there was a short turnaround of games was the fact that we haven't had a squad. He hasn't had a squad. He's had a select probably 14 or 15 good players, and that is it. So we have to make sure that we are fully prepared going into these friendlies, particularly the tour of South Korea. And I've read that he wants everyone on that plane that he wants, and he doesn't want passengers. So we have to get busy, or Perisic has to be a very busy man in the coming weeks when the players are back from the internationals, and just make sure that the squad is there, who he wants. And I'm sure it will propel us and him well for the forthcoming season.
Can I just say, Lee, the game against Roma is the ITEC trophy. So we could lift a trophy against Jose Mourinho.
to go with the Audi Cup.
And of course,
yeah,
but it's not
against Jose.
Yeah, the last trophy I saw Spurs lift was the Audi Cup. I was there.
The Audi Cup. Of course, and I think that there's a lot of spite between, or animosity, not just obviously the Jose situation with Spurs, but do you remember Conte and Jose Mourinho? They don't get on.
Yeah.
Conte said he'll always be a little man, and
he did.
You know, they've had a back and forth, haven't they? Yeah, do you remember there was a bit of spite there? So that'll be interesting, that game.
Yeah, will there be a handshake?
Jace, just kind of you. Obviously, you've been in Southeast Asia for a lot of your life. Actually, you lived there. Obviously, set up businesses over there as well. And you mentioned earlier about the South Korea tour and how Chris is going to see firsthand how it's going to blow Sonny away and how much he held high regard. Do you think that going over there and the other players seeing that firsthand will, I don't know, not shock them, but would you think they're you know, like some of the fringe players like Sessegnon, for example, going over there and seeing that, thinking, hang on, look at Sonny. Do you know what I mean, or not? Do you think they already know that?
I think they know it, but they will be stunned when they actually see it. They really will, and I think their respect for him will go up even more so. I think everyone at Tottenham, even Daniel Levy, will sit there and think, I can't quite believe what we're doing, and that's the great thing for me, that when his name is linked with Liverpool this year, I don't think they have a cat in hell's chance of signing him, because number one, Tottenham are going on that tour, the commercial opportunities that come through him, and I think the payback for Tottenham allowing him to go to those Asian games. When I saw a couple of Liverpool people saying, doesn't he have ambition? What people have to remember is he had an ambition for a professional career, which had he done his military service, he would have lost 2 years of his professional career right at the peak of it. So to win that gold medal in a non-FIFA tournament, so Tottenham didn't have to release him, and I think previously Hamburg and Leverkusen hadn't released him for those tournaments. Yeah, for him to win that military exemption, that's the biggest honour. And Asian people have hugely passionate and fiercely loyal about things like that for their country, what prestige that gives to the rest of their family and that. So, you know, there's a lot of things. And don't get me wrong, Tottenham have had the benefit of Sonny for 2 years at Spurs at the peak of his career, which they might well have lost out on as well. But, you know, there are just so many reasons why Liverpool don't have a cat in hell's chance of getting Sonny. I think people in the media here just look at Sonny as, well, he plays on the left wing and he can replace Mane and that. They don't realise the whole emotional and the business side of things that Tottenham and Sonny have gone through. So no chance he'll go on. And like I say, I think even players like Kane, the Eric Dyers, they will be stunned and have a huge more respect for him after this trip.
Well, they'll be brushed aside, won't they? Literally, when the fans see Son, they won't care about Harry Kane in World Cup winning captain Hugo Lloris. It'll be take me to the god of South Korea, because he's the god there. He is.
Yeah, I did see you, Jace, go after that Liverpool journalist that actually wrote on Twitter. I did see you.
She's got no ambition.
Yeah, no. She mentioned, didn't she? You know, the lack of ambition, because he might want to stay at Tottenham, and yeah, I mean, well said on Sonny and all of that. Fantastic. Looking at pre-season, I'm fascinated to see where we go. I'm going to take a final break for the listeners on audio. There's over 929 of you now watching on YouTube live. Absolutely fantastic. Thanks ever so much. Got some rubbish comments going on in there in certain areas, but you know, we won't focus on them. Got in the main, fantastic comments, brilliant interaction with the show. Thank you so much. Hopefully Jay sticks around, because I generally want him to stick around. We probably want to do the last kind of 10 minutes or so of the show. We cannot do a show without talking about transfer rumours. This is where Chris Cowlin comes in. So Jamie from the Daily Hotspur, who can't be with us tonight. Frank's going to talk to us a little bit about the rumours as well. Instead of going through names and throwing names at us and so on and so forth, what I actually want to do is just talking about the kind of outgoings that we've already had. I think it's really important to remember that I think there was 11 or 12 players went out when Paratici came into a football club last season. And then another 4 went out in January. And then another 13 have gone out, 12 from the development squad in the academy, and one obviously being Galini already this season. There's a lot of players that are moving around or kind of coming in and out of the cycle. I just want to throw some names at all of you, and you can just make some comments and stuff. Chris, we'll start with you. Galini's already gone out of the door. Winks, Rodon, Bergie, Cameron Carter-Vickers, I think, is about to sign for Celtic. Reguilon, Emerson Royale. I mean, these are sorts of players, names kind of from the first team that you're thinking, do you know what? These are the people. When you mentioned earlier about being ruthless, these are the guys that we've got to move on.
Absolutely. And it is all about being ruthless. That is the only word I will use. I think that Fabio Paratici coming in, he's showing that ruthless nature and that ruthless side of a winning football club, of the mentality that we want. We want to be winners, and there is no point having players around the football club who are, one, going to be negative, or two, don't want to be there, or three, aren't good enough. So it's all about getting in new additions and getting in the players that Antonio Conte feels confident in, and bringing in winners. I love the ruthless side. I think that many other clubs, other London teams, our rivals have been ruthless. Chelsea have been ruthless for years in the way that they do things, and they've won many trophies over the years, and we haven't. So it's about time that we are ruthless as a football club and changing the mentality, and showing the likes of Harry Kane, showing the likes of Antonio Conte that Tottenham is the football club to be at, and hopefully, we will be successful because of it.
Brilliant stuff. Jace, just coming over to you. I mean, John, hang on, I've just lost a comment. There he is, loads of comments. So John says here, do you see any of the younger players like White, Scarlett making an impact next season? Do you think they might be going out on loan? The list of names that I've just said, Jace, that are already playing for us, do you think that they are the ones that we're, I don't want to say trying to ship out, but to move on for out of the football club? The Winks, the Rodons, the Bergwines, Reguilons, Emerson Royales. Do you think that they will move on?
I think a lot of those will go. Whether we end up with a taker for Reguilon, that'll be quite an interesting one. Whether we get the fee that we want, or whether it becomes a loan out. I think when you see what happened with Ndombele, Dele, and Lo Celso, they really were ruthless this winter. Paratici obviously had got through to Daniel Levy and said, we have to get these players out. And that's been part of Tottenham's big problem, as well as bringing players in, is getting rid. So I think the signs look good for us. I do expect, Carter-Vickers is one that you think, he's probably been here 3 years longer than he should have been. Carter-Vickers. It doesn't look like we've ever had an intention to play him since he got done in the cup tie by Wickham, by the Beast, 5 or 6 years ago or whatever. And he's had a good year at Celtic. He's been on loan plenty of places, so it is those players that go on. But yeah, I'd probably let Emerson go. I'd let Reguilon go. I'd let Winks go. I don't think there's, they're not improving. It'll be interesting to see with the youngsters, because I think with Harvey Whites and Scarletts and things, it's easier to keep them on board if you're playing Conference League football or Europa League football. But Champions League football is entirely different. You might be lucky and get one dead rubber on match day 6 in a group, and that's about it. So that the opportunities for those players to play is not the same as Europa League with Pacos de Ferreira and places like that. And I think John's obviously the expert on the youth. He says, I'd sooner these players go out like Oliver Skipp did, go and get 40, 50 games under their belt somewhere and have a real understanding. The way that Jed Spencer's gone out on, everyone talks about him. He's gone out on loan to Forest. He's not a Forest player. And let's hope some of those younger players do that. And I think Troy Parrott might be the interesting one, whether they look at him and think, can he, if we don't get the backup striker and that, would they keep Parrott around them, or do they still think, I'd sooner loan him out to a Championship side. I think they probably want a Championship side, but I think Parrott's one might depend on who comes in as to what stage he'll go out with.
Interesting stuff. I mean, Frank, coming over to you, Jason made a point there about Skip going out on loan, and isn't he the doesn't he like epitomise why that loan system can work so well? I mean, he clearly Norwich missed him this season for the shocking season they've just had, and we totally benefited. You know, and I know it's been said before, but we'll say it again. He went away a boy and come back a man. Do you think some of the younger players will do that, and in particular? Do you think there's any way back for the likes of Rodon or Winks or the likes of Emerson or Bergie, that sort of thing, Frank?
Well, with the players that you just mentioned, no, I think we'll be ruthless. I think the struggle will be Tanguy on Dembele. I think we'll struggle to shift him. I think that will be a loan. Just my opinion, but I think all of the players that we think are going to go will go, and Spurs will change their stance that they've carried for so many years, and they'll just get them out the door. And I listened to Conte because they did in January. And with regards to the youngsters, I think beyond Scarlett, who looks a real prospect, and for Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte to both say this boy is going to be special, and we've seen what he's done at England under 19 and youth level, I think he'll get a good loan, and I think the loan will serve him well. But I think with Skip, and Chris and I have had this conversation before, Oliver Skip at 14 was playing for the 16s and the 17s. He was always touted as a special player, and he always looked years above what he was playing at. So I think there's a big difference between him and, say, Harvey White, because Harvey White did go on loan to Portsmouth and didn't really feature much. And unfortunately, I'd like to see him go out on loan to League One or a Championship club, but I don't think he'll have a future at Spurs in the long run. And just echoing what you guys have said as well, Jason in particular, there are no passengers in these European games that you can get away with in the Europa. In some games in the Conference League, you're not going to play the kids. So I think we'll see lots of them moved on. And the one that I'm sort of interested to see get a good loan, well, I hope he gets a good loan, and I'll be watching him with a keen eye, will be Dane Scarlett. And I think even if he gets a good League One club and he gets promised first team football, I'll be very excited to see how he develops. And I think it will do him the world of good.
Yeah, Lee, can I just come in there about Dane Scarlett?
Yeah, please go for it, Chris.
Yeah, I was going to say a club like Leyton Orient would be absolutely ideal for Dane Scarlett to go out on loan. He was banging in goals for the Tottenham Hotspur under 18s, and then of course Jose Mourinho integrated him into the first team, and then ever since then, really, he's missed that stage of playing regularly for the under 23s. So of course, when he's on the sub bench for the first team, if the under 23s are playing the next day or the day before or whatever, then he won't be included into that squad. And I think that's a shame sometimes, because players like that then miss out. But I think that it would really, really benefit him, exactly like Oliver Skip, like you mentioned earlier, to go on loan for a season, come back and then be refreshed, and then could perhaps be, on the sub bench for us and perhaps make an impact.
And yeah. Troy Parrott's an interesting one.
I was just going to say one point. I think Frank touched on it a little bit with paying off players. You know, that assumption when they said about the 150 million, I think it was a big assumption that that's 150 million into the transfer budget. I think that was part of that will be used for big contract extensions for a few players, and for saying, right, okay, we're going to have to write off 25 million quid here. So, the 150 million, and then you start signing Perisic and Fraser Forster on free transfers, maybe Eriksen on a free transfer. That just shows you that 150 million isn't necessarily all on a transfer budget, but I think it will be used for paying off a lot of players to be ruthless and clear the decks.
Don't bring the mood down, Jace.
No. I think it's a positive, Chris.
Yeah,
I think that does enable us to go and do that, to say to Ndombele, right, we'll just write off Dele Alli, we gave him a free transfer. A free transfer. That's a big write-off, isn't it?
He was worth £100 million a few years ago. Let's be totally honest. He was, particularly when the market was that inflated. He was worth £100 million, and we've given him away. So we're more ruthless than we've been. But a name that keeps popping up on the feed, which I did miss, and he's someone that I'm very excited about also, is Alfie Devine. I think he needs a good loan. Although I think they're keeping him. I'm not sure where I read that, but he looks a prospect, and we took him off Wigan, didn't we, at 15 years old, and paid quite a lot of money for him at that age. And he's got the lot.
Does doesn't he have to do 3 years at Tottenham to become club homegrown?
Yes, I think
And I
that's
think
it.
that might be why
we can't
they
let
end
him
up
go,
keeping
can
him.
we?
No, to
I
do
think we
that
can't.
third year. Yeah, I
But
think
he
that's
looks
the problem.
brilliant. He looks brilliant, and also special mention to Troy Parrott, who came on very strong at the end of last season at MK Dons. Scored some brilliant goals and very creative. I don't know what will happen with him because he's not really. How old is he now? Is he 20? Chris, you'd know this. How old is Troy Parrott?
Do you know what? With Troy Parrott, I used to watch him in the under-19s, and he looked a real prospect, and he looked like one for the future. He looked like he was going to come into the first team. Jose Mourinho again integrated him to the first team. Looked like he was going to get a lot of minutes. His career don't seem to have gone anywhere really. Yes, he's gone out on loan, but he hasn't hit the ground running at MK Dons. He's another one who I mentioned earlier about Bergwijn starting for his country, Joe Rodon starting for his country, now Troy Parrott starting for his country, and not playing first team minutes for Spurs. I'd be surprised if we
20,
see.
Chris.
Sorry,
he's 20 years old. Would you give him another loan spell, or would you get him out the door?
It's an interesting one because you think about Harry Kane's career. Most people wrote Harry Kane off and said, let's get him out the door. And then, of course, we saw what happened with him. So you never ever know.
7 loans, I think, Kane had. 7 loans. Incredible stuff. Well, I mean, it's fascinating. I did leave off talking about Bergwijn. I think that he's probably going to leave the football club. He was on the list, but I think he's going to go. I think he's probably one that we can get some money in for. Giovanni Lo Celso looks like he's going to be out of the door as well from a fee perspective. But as you just mentioned, I think we paid 45 million for him in total, and that wouldn't have been paid off. It's always capex over the period of the contract, but there's still money to pay if he goes back out the door. Even if we get 25 million euros for him, which I think Villarreal are looking at paying for him. I think they bid 17 million. We're having a negotiation with him. We're still going to have to take a hit on what that contract value is. So. And it's the same with Ndombele and so on and so forth. We've also got to remember, and this is not bringing the mood down because I actually think that actually getting them players out of the door and bringing some money back in for them enables us to go out and do what we need to do. The free transfers, I mean, if we got Eriksen back and we've already signed Perisic and we've got Fraser Forster as a backup homegrown goalkeeper, that's absolute quality, isn't it? And you only actually had to pay a fee, like a transfer fee for them. So it gives you that even if it's one, maybe 2 big signings of a Bastoni, which again, his agent has come out this week and said, he's a professional. He loves the club. He loves Inter, but he's a professional and, alluding to the fact that actually if Inter need to get rid of him, then actually it's going to be on them, not on him. I think there's a bit of brinkmanship there with Bastoni being an Inter lad. It's a little bit like, think about it from Kane's perspective, right? One of our own, or Skippy, one of our own. You wouldn't want him to start coming out and engineering a move. Look how it made us all feel when Kane was trying to engineer a move to City last summer and all them reports. So Bastoni's keeping his kind of powder dry, if you like, and saying, no, I kind of want to stay. But knowing that Inter have got to sell, we already know that. Everybody's reported that, friends have shown Ali Gold, the other big Tottenham journalists have all been reporting that Inter Milan need to sell. They're reportedly looking at Lukaku. They're reportedly looking at, Fab, he was on your channel earlier, Chris, wasn't he? He basically said that Gleason Bremer is a done deal. They're just waiting for, the paperwork to be signed off as with the bids. But they can't go and do all this business Inter without getting some money in. So they're either going to sell one of their big players, aren't they? It could be Martinez, Laurento Martinez. It could be Bastoni. And I don't know, I've got a funny feeling. What do you think, Frank?
Well, he's an Atlanta boy, Bastoni. That's the academy he came through. So he's not one of their own. He moved to Inter, I believe.
Slightly different. Okay, good knowledge.
4 or 5 years ago. And Conte was his sort of his biggest advocate. He brought him through. He played him at a young age. He gave him the opportunity at a big club like Inter Milan to play regular first team football. So I think that carries a lot of weight. I think the problem with Inter is because he has been so good over the last couple of seasons and his age, I don't think they want to sell him because he is an Inter Milan fan. But I just feel that one looks a bit complicated. I mean, Chris, probably best to pass over to you because obviously you've had an interesting day talking to Fabrizio and obviously heard the latest. So what is your take on the Bastoni situation?
Well, of course, as Lee said, the agent come out and said that he'd be professional about it. If Inter Milan want to sell, then they will sell. But of course, there has been no official approach from Spurs right now. It's interesting because all of these reports keep being published stating that Tottenham have put in official bids. Well, we haven't put in official bids for any of these players, including Jed Spence. Lots of clubs are interested in these players, but no official approaches as yet.
Interesting stuff. So, you've just answered my next question about Jed Spence. Eriksen, Jace, coming over to you. Not whether or not is he going to come or not, but would you like him? Bless you. Do you think that Eriksen? There is a strong possibility that Eriksen can come back to a football club, isn't there? Lives in London, wants to stay in London. Been quoted as saying, "I want to play in the Champions League." Well, there's only 2 clubs in London that are playing in the Champions League. He's surely not going to Chelsea, is he?
I was amazed at that. I didn't think too much about Eriksen coming back until that Conte interview. I forget when it was. Maybe it was in the January window when he almost said that he would like him.
Yeah.
I remember he got asked it, and it was the type of thing when he was going to Brentford, and he said, you would kind of expect the thing, no, it's great to see him back, wish him all the best, blah, 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 and just leave it like that, almost as the bland answer. But he said, I'm staying in the hotel, we've talked, I loved working with him, and it was just really enthused about talking about him and working with him. And Eriksen's been very reluctant to commit beyond anything beyond the end of the season. I certainly think the door is open, whether they reach agreement or not. And I know people will say it's, when we talk about moving on from Gareth Bale and don't be sentimental about these players, Christian Eriksen still improves our current squad. It's as simple as that.
Oh,
and any lingering doubts about his effectiveness, he solved that at Brentford. And does he improve us? Is he good enough to get in our squad? Absolutely he is. And if he's on a free transfer, and we always talk about hitting the Premier League running, he knows Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, he knows the Premier League, and he knows the demands that Conte wants from him. So when you have all of those 3 things and it's a free transfer, you just think it's a no-brainer, isn't it, to at least try and do the deal. If somebody comes along and says to Christian Eriksen, if Liverpool or whoever, or Man City came along and said, look, here's 350 grand a week and you'll win us, then there's not a lot you can probably do against that. But for me, it's a no-brainer to at least try and bring him back to the football club.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think just going back to something that Frank mentioned earlier in the show about, systems that Inter were playing, he took a while, didn't he, to integrate into Conte's system. Then he changed it to a 3-5-2, and then Eriksen was excellent, absolutely outstanding in them systems, playing for Conte's Inter last year. Frank, coming over to you with regards to more names. One that I'm not that keen on at all, to be honest, but it's been linked this week. Alan St. Maximum. Does that excite you coming to the football club? I mean, I can't see it personally, but what do you think, Frank? Do you think that's something that improves us?
He's another one with outstanding dribbling abilities. I think he completed the most dribbles last season in the top European leagues, top 5 leagues, but his end product, it leaves a lot to be desired for at times. The caveat to that, or the argument to that rather, would be playing with players like Son and Kane. Would that improve his output or his end product? Because obviously last season, Callum Wilson, who's the best striker at Newcastle, wasn't fit for most of the time. So on the end of his chances, it was Almir and Ryan Fraser and Chris Wood, which is, it's not exactly the highest of quality, is it, in finishers? But the jury's out. I think we could do better. He's not for me personally, but if Conte wants him, then it's up to him at the end of the day. But I just feel that the price that's been spoken of, £40 million, I think we could get better. Kulusevski cost us less than that with the loan fee added on, or will cost us less than that. So I can't see that one happening personally. I mean, Lucas and St. Maximin, is there much difference in them? I think Lucas, if anything's got a better end product. So no, it's a no from me.
I think he's another Lamella. I know that might please some people. Love Lamela, some people didn't. But when you look at Lamela's record over that period of time, Jace, you called it so early on. I'll never forget it when you said Lamela never had that big goal in, and when he got the big goal, the Rabona against Arsenal, he ended up getting sent off. I mean, you couldn't make it up. So it's classic Lamela. There's something about him. Like there's another name. Chris, I'll throw this one at you because Jason will probably switch off when I say this, but Adama Traore or there you go, Jace. He's also heavily linked again, and I understand that Perisic and maybe even Conte, if they want him, then fair enough. But my personal opinion, is that he didn't really want to come to us in January, did he? He kind of snubbed us, if you like, to go to Barcelona. I know you and Fabrizio were talking about this earlier today. What's your view on St. Maximin and also Adama Traore, Chris?
Well, St. Maximin, I think we're being linked with virtually every player across Europe right now. And of course, all the guys on Twitter putting every single rumour out, they're absolutely loving this period at the moment. But we are going to be linked with all the players across Europe because, of course, when the club have come out and said we've got £150 million plus to spend, then, of course, we're going to be linked with everybody. Adama Traore, Fabrizio Romano said to me earlier, that Spurs were super unhappy about the situation in January. Of course, Spurs wanted to sign Adama Traore in January. The way that he dealt with the situation, Spurs were not at all happy with. Of course, he went back to Barcelona, and now it looks like he's going back to Wolves. So I can't see that one happening either.
And just on that, as you talk about St. Maximin, maybe with better players, their output increases. Adama made a decent enough start, but by the end of it, wasn't in the Barcelona side, So having better players around him didn't actually work, didn't actually do anything for him. Aubameyang, for whatever that lot down the road, he's still a quality striker. Aubameyang scored plenty of goals for Barcelona. He made an impression at Barcelona. Adama lasted 2 or 3 weeks, and then the appeal disappeared again. And that's what I've always said about him. But the Johnson's Oil sold another couple of containers for him.
But with St. Maximin, he's one of the Newcastle's best players. They're not going to be in a position to sell their best player right now, are they?
No. Exactly. No, I totally agree with that. And I just think that, look, there's been some players down the years at Tottenham that definitely get you off your seats. There's absolutely no doubt about that. We can list them all day. We've all had them fantastic memories on them. Are you going to get off your seat with Adama and or ASM? Like, to be honest, because you might get off your seat a little bit and then just sit back down because they've got no end product or they can't fit. But I genuinely haven't been that impressed with Alan St. Maximin at all. And I'm definitely not a fan of Adama Traore coming into a football club.
Well, I think you get off your seat. I think Traore gets you off the seat because you're trying to avoid the ball hitting you in the face.
Lee, can I mention one player? Gabriel Jesus. I tell you what, when I spoke to Fabrizio earlier, I was actually surprised that he confirmed that there had been contact between Spurs and the player and his agent. But Arsenal at the moment are front runners to sign Gabriel Jesus. I just wanted your opinions whether, if we sign Jesus, where he would fit in and because he wants to be a main player. He wants to be a starter at a football club. When you've got likes of Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, why do you think that we're going in or talking to a player like this?
We didn't. He doesn't fit. Sorry, if I go, he doesn't fit in that. If he wants to come to a football club and play regular first team football in the forward line, which he played 34 games or 32 games for Man City this year, and he still wants to leave for regular football. He doesn't break into that front three, does he? At time, he's not going to replace Kane, is he?
But we can have lots of games this season. I mean, obviously, I get what you're saying. I don't think he will come because he wants to go somewhere and be a main man. I would take him. I would be happy with that. I would be happy with that. I just don't think he'd come to play second fiddle or not be that main focal point, which is what he wants to be at the age and the stage of his career he's at now. But I would take him. I think he's a good player. I think he'd add depth to our squad. And I'd love to get that one over the line. The other name that obviously is being mentioned is Basuma. I think he'd be unbelievable business for us. He gave us a lesson when they beat us at our place. And that would be an outstanding signing. I'd try and get that done if I was the club. But we do need a forward. I think we need, if Harry Kane gets injured, we were very lucky this season. We need a number 9 who can play with his back to goal, hold the ball up. It seems to me we're linked with a more sort of hybrid forward who can play in that 9, but also can play across the front. It seems that that's the type of player we'll go for, but we do need an alternative to Harry Kane if he can't play every game or he does get a knock. And I still haven't seen us linked with any of those types of players. I know that names were thrown like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, which I don't believe for a minute. I think Darwin Núñez, who I think will go to Manchester United or Liverpool personally, probably Manchester United. But I mean, Richarlison's another name mentioned. I know Jason's not his biggest fan. Probably not for me as well. I just don't like the fact that he throws himself to the floor. He'd frustrate the life out of me. But I do think we need another forward. There's not really, barring Jesus, I've not heard. Chris, you may have heard, but there isn't any other names that we've been linked with concrete interest. But I'm pretty sure they're after a forward.
Yeah, only Darwin Núñez, as you mentioned, and Fabrizio said that he didn't seem much chance of that happening. But when you think back about the striker situation, the last time we actually signed a striker on a permanent deal was Fernando Llorente, 2017. It's unbelievable. Of course, we had Gareth Bale and Carlos Vinicius, but they were both on loan. But we need to sign a striker, and I would be absolutely astonished if we didn't have another striker when the season starts under Conte.
We have to. It's important.
Just going back to Jesus, like for me, I'm not saying that I don't rate Jesus. I actually think he's a good player, and if we can get him over the line, he can play for. But I just don't think he will come. If it's true that he wants to play regular team football more than he's playing at City, why would you come and be a bit part player at Tottenham when you can stay at City and basically win every year? Like, why would you do that? You just wouldn't do it. So I just don't think that is one, in my opinion, that when all said and done could even happen, because he's just going to say no. I don't want to go to there. Look, painfully, and I heard Fab say this to you earlier anyway, that Arsenal were in for him. They've been tracking him a long time. But painfully, he would go to Arsenal and play every week. He would be their main man. So, regardless of a Champions League football or not, he knows Arteta, whole Man City set up there, Edu as well, Brazilian. That makes more sense. But look, this is football, lads, listeners, viewers. This is football. Nothing really makes sense in this world. I just want to wrap up really by saying, absolutely phenomenal. Over 1,000 people. As soon as we started talking about transfers and Jason started it in his head, we got over 1,000 viewers.
You actually promised Jason this weren't going to be a 2-hour transfer special.
I know, which is exactly why I'm going to be wrapping it up now. And I just want to say thank you for everybody that is tuned in. Over 1,000 of you, hit the likes and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Thank you again for listening as well and downloading. You can go and download through all of the channels itself. And I'd love to say thank you to our returning guests. Chris, start with you. What have you got on for the rest of the week? You talking transfers all week on your channel?
Oh, yeah, I'll be talking transfers until the 31st of August. I'm sure Jason will be tuned in. But just before I go, Lee, I would just like to say that at the weekend, I actually went down to the Museum of London to go and see the Harry Kane exhibition, and it's called I Want to Play Football. It's on until December. So for anybody interested in seeing the personal Harry Kane collection, match-worn shirts, the golden boots, all of his personal awards, it is well worth a visit, and it's free entry as well. So do head down there. But it's been great talking to all of you guys this evening.
Brilliant stuff, Chris. I know it was a phenomenal museum. Frankie, what you got on, buddy? What's going on in the world of Frankie Major?
Following the football in the football verse, or what they call it now, football world. I'm literally just going to be following the internationals. I'm still waiting for that special with Chris Cowlin, Fabrizio Romano, and Jason. I think that would probably do 50,000 plus, maybe more, amongst the Spurs fan base. It would do huge numbers. So one day I might get my wish between now and the 31st.
And
of
the
August,
Biffa for all the rubbish that gets spoken. Yeah.
But yeah, just keeping my ear to the Spurs ground, and hopefully there's more sort of progress on the Bastoni deal, because he's definitely a player that I think would add so much to this squad. So that's about it from me, Lee.
Brilliant stuff, thank you. And Jace, what about yourself? What you got going on?
Second test Friday, volleyball weekend, but we should actually just send our best wishes to Emerson Royal, who had that particularly unsavoury incident at the weekend. Never nice to see that, and thank God he's he's all okay. So best wishes to him.
No, absolutely. And just actually, frankly, Tottenham on here just saying, could Decky be a fill-in striker? This is actually an interesting point. I missed it going up the comments before, but he's strong. He's got good ball control. Can he play in behind? Can he be a fill-in striker? Chris, you're kind of agreeing with that or not?
Absolutely. Superb finishing with his right foot, his left foot, and if we did need someone to fill in a striker, I'm sure he'd do a great job.
Fantastic. Frank, you got a opinion? I know you're a big fan of Kulusevski, like we all are.
Probably, but I still think we need an orthodox number 9, someone who can play, who's used to playing that position, not someone who's going to be playing out of position to fill that role. So, I agree, he could play that position, but we certainly need another centre forward.
And Jace, finally on that point, Kulu, do you think he could hit number 9 heights?
I think he could do a job, but for me, a striker, he's got to attack that near post, be able to get those 2-yard type goals. There's so many. I mean, Delhi scores so many strikers type goals, but when he was asked to play as a number 9, he didn't look anything like a genuine striker. So, just because you're scoring goals from certain positions on the pitch doesn't make you a striker. Sonny's in fairness, Sonny's pretty close to it, isn't he? Sonny's about the closest I've known a player that can do it. But Mane, in fairness, is doing it as well. But like I say, strikers have to score all types of goals, not just those Kulusevski style goals.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree. Well, look, I mean, fantastic from Chris, from Frank, from Jason, and of course Ricky, somewhere sunning himself with his family, and rightly so after a long, hard season. Hopefully, I've done him proud, and the rest of everyone else, the listeners and the viewers as well. And I hope to be back driving this damn crazy train over the next couple of weeks. We've got loads of good stuff coming out, some fantastic content, behind the scenes content at Tottenham, not from the playing side of things, but certainly from the foundation side of things. We've got some really good interviews coming up, things that normally people don't really understand and see at the front end. We've managed to get some really good content around there. Obviously, our sponsors, Beavertown Corner Pin. We are still on the Laser Crush. We are still on the neck oils as well, and we'll be going back down there. We're hoping to get a couple of live shows throughout the summer in there. So watch this space. A massive thank you again to @Digital Spurs. You can follow them for this wonderful T-shirt. Rodrigo Bentancur talking about that. @Tim Winstone, @Spurs Song Sheets as well, @THFC Flags. In my opinion, doing a brilliant job towards the end of the season to get that fan base rallying behind the team to get us to that top 4. Absolutely fantastic stuff. So thanks everybody for watching and listening. We'll see you on the next show. And I've always wanted to say this. So whatever you do, keep safe, keep well. And as always, come on you Spurs.
Well done, McQueen.
Great job, Lee.
Well done, McQueen.